You're listening to The Rob and Tristan Show. Today's episode is brought to you by Refbox. Refbox, keeping your kids in bounds.
Hey, it's Rob here. Thank you guys for joining us. Today we're going to talk a little bit about kids and how to navigate through the, we'll call them the concerns of the web. I've got a 15-year-old son and a 12-year-old daughter, and so I'm in that interesting stage where they both have iPods. I have very little control over what they're looking at on a normal basis. That includes apps and chats and so on. So they're a growing concern of mine. And I know Tristan. Tristan has a couple of wonderful kids too.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Yeah, but quite a bit of a different age bracket, right? I mean, you were saying that yours is 15 and 12, right? So I have a son and a daughter, but my son's 4 and my daughter is not even a year old yet. So very different challenges with respect to the role of a parent and the threats of the internet.
Yeah, I agree. It also might be a good sign of intelligence between the two of us, who waited a little longer and who didn't. But I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, well, time will tell.
So with that in mind, and thinking on both our counts of how do we talk to kids about the web and the concerns of the web, we decided it'd be a good idea to bring in an expert.
You had an interview with Diane McGregor from KW Counseling Services.
I'm currently the Director of Family and Community Solutions at KW Counseling Services. In my department, we operate what we call our Parenting with Passion program. And that's like quite an extensive parenting education program that we run, like seminars and courses and weekly group meetings and things like that. As well, I'm in charge of what we call our children's emotion regulation groups. So we run a couple of different versions of a program that we call STEAM, that are skills to help kids manage emotions in a different kind of way or in a more healthy way. And one of our more recent kind of additions to that is that we have our kind of clinic-based version of it that we call Temper Taming Together, where we're introducing parents and kids working together on emotion regulation. kwcounseling.com is our website, and within that are all the various programs that we operate.
So that was Diane McGregor from KW Counseling. I had the opportunity this week to sit down and have a chat with her.
Yeah, you were telling me a bit about the conversation that you two were having and the advice that she had for parents regarding how to talk to your kids about the dangers of the internet, right?
Yeah, I started off by just asking her, just generally, what are some of the concerns parents face in regards to the web and their kids? Here's what she had to say.
Well, certainly online safety comes up a lot as our parents tell us that it is something that they worry about and how to keep their kids safe. Part of it is how to understand what kids are doing, right? And, what are the different kinds of ways that kids are engaging on the internet or online, and then how to keep them safe. So that comes up as a topic for sure in our parenting courses, and we often get asked for that as a workshop, and we do have a workshop that is about understanding the technology that our kids are involved with and keeping them safe online.
So, what I hoped as a parent is that somehow I was going to kind of squeak through life as a dad without having to talk about some of the difficult things. Maybe I'm optimistic or lazy, but I really hoped that I was somehow going to get a pass and that I wouldn't have to talk to my kids about things like drugs or violence or the dangers of the internet. It hasn't worked that way. I mean, obviously I've had to have discussions, but I'd say that I'm probably, if Diane had a point scale for parental effectiveness based on what she just said, I'd probably fall around a 2 out of 10. You're a little more technical minded than me. Have you had more opportunity to think about how you're going to talk to your kids?
Yeah, when I do technical consulting, some even parents, which, I do more of the business side of technical consulting, when I talk to parents and stuff like that, they kind of hope technology's like this magic bullet, right? And that can do everything. And I don't have to worry about my kids online because I've got whatever technology, or even in corporate, right? I don't have to worry about security because I bought whatever. What I liked about your interview with Diane is she was talking about how, parenting is still very much there. You can't just depend on a technical tool and expect that everything's okay. You still have to be engaged and communicate with your children and having an open dialogue. And I think she was really stressing curiosity, right? Being curious about what your kids are doing online, not suspicious, because especially teens, as I'm sure you're aware, might be much more reserved about having discussions if they feel that you're suspicious. But if they feel like you're genuinely interested and curious about their life, and not just their life in the physical world, but also virtually and what that means on the internet. And so sometimes as a technical consultant, I have to say the same thing, that technology is just not enough. You have to couple that with training or management or whatever. And obviously that's more business speak, but it's the same thing I think that Diane was trying to get to here, that parents can't just plug in, say, the RefBox and expect everything to work, that you need to be pairing that with other tools, including communicating.
Yeah, so one of the things I followed up with her on was just asking are there anything we could call healthy habits that could be developed between a parent and a child as far as the web goes. So this is what she had to say there.
Healthy habits, that's a great way to put it. I like that expression. And yeah, there are a number of kind of healthy habits. And what I like to focus on the most is the power of the parent-child relationship. Right? So it's really within the context of relationship that we feel the safest, right? And our relationship, or the parent-child relationship, applies to all of these kinds of ways that the children are exploring into the world. We use our relationship when our kids are going off to school and we're worried about their safety crossing the street. And some of it is the same kind of attitude that we bring to parenting our kids when they are going online. So we want to be involved in their lives, know what they're doing, keeping an eye on things, being curious about what it is that they're learning, exploring with them, coaching them through how to, just as we teach a kid how to cross the street in a safe way, we also need to teach kids how to go onto the internet in safe ways, and that too, and how to be discerning, how to kind of know when maybe something isn't quite right, and then what to do when you recognize that something is perhaps not the safest kind of thing, or when something is happening online that is getting them to feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, so when we were talking to Diane from KW Counseling, I was trying to understand how the advice applies to parents of kids with different age, right? So you mentioned that you have children between 12 and 15, but my oldest is 4 years old. So I was curious to know, and I guess more interested in her answer, about how my parenting style to my 4-year-old when it comes to the internet and how to be safe would be different than your parenting style to, say, your teens. So this is what Diane had to say about that.
It's all about communication. It's all about building that kind of trust so that your kid will talk to you about the things that they are doing. So building good communication, and a lot of our parenting courses focus on us building good communication skills right from the get-go, but particular is very important with teenagers too, right? So we talk about the notion of curiosity. So we want, as a parent, I want to be curious about what my child is doing or my teen is doing during the day when I'm not home. But it's about a curiosity, not suspicion. So sometimes our kids think you're spying on me, or you're being, what do you think? You don't trust me. Why are you asking these questions? You don't trust me, kind of thing, right? And so it's coming at being curious about what they're doing, spending time with them in the evening, exploring, their Facebook page, or their, exploring together, not snooping and spying, being curious and interested, so that you can help form a dialogue and a conversation around what are the kinds of things that they're bumping into.
Yeah, so it seems pretty clear from talking to Diane that one of the most important factors of helping your kids navigate, I guess, the difficulties or the concerns of the web is communicating with them directly. And that's certainly one of the tools she highlights.
So you're talking about Diane McGregor from KW Counseling. We've been talking to her about how to keep your kids safe online. But before we go much further, let's just take a short break. We'll be right back.
Protect your children from the dangerous side of the internet. Introducing the RefBox. The RefBox filters all devices connected to your home network, tablets, Macs, PCs, and more. And there's no software installation needed. Simply plug in the box and your family is protected against adult content, extreme violence, and dangerous phishing sites. Learn more by visiting refbox.ca. That's REF, refbox.ca. RefBox. Keep your kids in bounds.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Tristan and Rob Show. Today we're talking about keeping your kids safe while online. We've been asking an expert, KW counselor Diane McGregor, about what her opinions are about tools that parents could be leveraging in ways of keeping their kids safe.
Yeah, and I think from what we've been hearing from her, it's pretty clear that communication is a big tool in the parent, I guess, toolbox. when it comes to trying to help your kids navigate safely through the web. So I really appreciate a lot of what she was willing to kind of offer. So we asked her if there's anything else she wanted to add or that she thought we didn't cover. So this is what she had to say.
Well, definitely the communication and the curiosity, so engaging in dialogue about one of the things that happens when kids, and when I say kids, I mean children and youth, like teenagers too, kind of in the same breath, right? And one of the things that happens is that kids do get online. Maybe something starts to go on that they're not really too sure about, or they take some risks. Kids do take risks online, and then they may get themselves into a situation where they just kind of know that it's not okay or it's not going okay. And what we want as a parent, what I want as a parent, is that my child feels safe enough to come to me when something like that has happened. And they can say, hey, Mom, I don't think it's okay what's going on, or this has happened, or somebody has said this to me, and it's making me really upset. I want to know that my kid will come to me with that, and that they can trust me not to just get really overreactive and then jump in and then say, oh, well, that's not safe, so I'm going to scoop you off of everything, right? And move in with this kind of overreaction that's about protecting, but then it removes them from Facebook, from whatever, right? Cuts them off of the internet, and then they're cut off from these things that have been so important to them. So as parents, one of the things we want to do is talk about and help our kids develop the skills to navigate those difficult situations. Be glad that they've come and talked to us. Get online with them. See what the nuances of the communication are and help them navigate it themselves to help them develop the strategies to set a boundary around it. Maybe this is one person that needs to be blocked, but they don't have to come off of everything that they're doing.
So, Rob, when you and I were talking offline and getting ready for today's recording, one of the things that we were trying to understand from our research and talking to Diane from KW Counseling, and just from our own practices of what tools to employ as a parent. We don't want to scare them, right? We want them to grow up. We want them to feel safe. We don't want to say the internet's a bad thing and you can never go on it, but we want to say the internet has some threats. And anyway, so when we were talking about this and figuring out the best way to present this to the audience, we kind of stumbled on an analogy or likening it to when your kid's younger and teaching them how to cross the street, right? You don't teach them and say, hey, there's cars can kill you, never cross the street. You say, look both ways and be careful. And from the beginning, hold my hand and we'll cross together. And you're constantly coaching them that there's a danger, but you're not instilling the fear of God into them kind of idea. You're not scaring them saying, a car is going to come barreling down on you and you should never cross the street. And I think that's some of the, you take Diane's advice about communicating. You want to talk to them, especially as they get older. I'm not about to talk to my 4-year-old about the dangers of sexting or sharing explicit photos or even talking to somebody that might be dangerous because he's just not at that stage yet. He's not chatting with anybody. At the most, he's watching YouTube videos and stuff, right? But for you, that would be a very different conversation. But again, how to have that conversation without scaring them, right? With your kids being 12 and 15.
Yeah, no, it's definitely difficult.
So it's walking that line, I think, right, of, listen, this is the internet, and these are some real threats that are out there. Here are some stories of some kids that are your age, and they got into some hot water with this, right? And actually, we're going to be covering an episode coming up about, your teens, and more specifically about sexting and sextortion and intimate photos and stuff like that and sharing them. If you guys are interested in more information about that, pay attention to one of our upcoming episodes. But staying more on topic about what Diane is talking about, she's stressing communication and she's stressing sharing. And just like you want to teach your kid about looking both ways before crossing the road because, cars can come and they may not see you and that would be dangerous. It's the same thing. When you're on the internet, there are certain things that you want to look out for because they might be dangerous. Sometimes you can just stumble upon them without even realizing it, right? I mean, you don't have to intentionally try to seek danger. You can just be surfing around innocently and then all of a sudden, boom, you've tripped over something.
Yeah, I think you're hinting at that story I told you.
I'm hoping to cause you a little bit of embarrassment here.
So it was about a month or two ago. I was just sitting in my living room. We've got our computer rigged up to the TV so that we're actually able to just use our computer on the home TV. And that's great for surfing the web and looking at things. And my wife and my daughter like to shop around on different websites, and they kind of got on the topic of day beds. My daughter wants one for her room. And so they were going through Google Images looking at these different day beds. And they saw one they thought was really cool. They clicked on it, and the screen went white. And right away I knew that was a problem because I saw this link populate at the top of the browser. And then up came this pornographic image for a adult dating site that I won't advertise. And so I immediately, my first reaction, I immediately turned to Sarah and said, hit the X. But I realized that she was sitting there in horror, frozen looking at the screen.
Imagine, yeah.
So then I realized my daughter has got the same look on her face staring at the screen. So I said, I called her name and I told her, look at me. So she looked at me and I was like, keep looking at me. And then I said to my wife, close the screen. And it took about a minute. Like, she was just in horror. She was so shocked. And thankfully, my daughter, I guess, had enough of and just knew to keep her eyes on me. And finally, my wife reacted and closed the screen. But not only was that a pornographic image, but it actually turned out to be malware as well that installed itself on the computer. So I had to deal with that. What makes that an embarrassing story is, especially after talking to Diane, I was so horrified by what happened that I'll freely admit I said nothing. I acted like it was all good. We didn't see anything. Let's get on with our day. And and I suppose in hindsight, I probably should have used that as a sort of a talking point. That might have been a good time to maybe talk about some of the things online since we were there, or make sure that she was okay with having seen what she just saw. Again, maybe the optimist in me was just like, no harm, no foul. Let's go about our day. And so I admit that this podcast in particular has made me feel a little bit like a fail dad on that moment. So.
Yeah, and you're talking about Diane from KW Counseling, right? And if I think if she stressed anything in her answers, it was about communication. And so maybe it was a little bit of a missed opportunity that you're talking about. I mean, it's in your face. You have to talk about this, and it sounds like maybe it was brushed over, but you don't know. It's a hard topic, right? And so your daughter 12 was exposed to that. And I think going to my point was that, it's not intentional. I mean, they were just innocently shopping. It wasn't like they were starting to trek off into the grayer side of the internet or even the darker side of the internet. It was just innocent shopping, and without even knowing it, got a malware virus and got a nude pop-up, right? So, yeah. And just to be clear, when I talk to people, they think that, they can control that threat a little bit by controlling their online behavior or controlling their children's online behavior. I mean, come on, I have a 4-year-old son. I can't tell him about, what adult websites are or how to discern them or what not to Google and things like that. He's 4. He's just not going to understand that. And you were talking about how they were just, Google image searching, right? And I think Google's a very safe site typically to be on. And just to go into another Google area, Lyndon, my 4-year-old son, he was on YouTube. He's clicking around on videos, and he loves Minecraft. And any parent out there that has children online, I'm sure have heard of Minecraft, and their kids' love for it. It's a pretty popular game, and it's kind of cool. It's very creative, right? It sparks some creativity. And you would think that, innocently enough, that watching Minecraft videos on YouTube wouldn't be so bad. But basically, I was sitting next to Lyndon. And he had his iPad out watching some YouTube stuff, and I was watching something on my iPad, and I had my headphones on so I can listen. And so, I was glancing over his shoulder, but I wasn't, I see Minecraft, I wasn't really hearing what was going on. But eventually my wife's across the room, and she kind of waves at me to say, hey, what is he actually watching? And the content visually was fine. Like I said, it was just a narration of someone's Minecraft world, but the narration was actually quite inappropriate. It was, I would, based off the sound of their voices, it sounded like some teenage boys, but it was just some racist slurs and just some not very nice things. And so we had to shut it down. And it's just one of those, you just don't think about it, right? So using technical tools to try to protect against certain things, like certainly technical tools against malwares and pop-ups, and protecting against adult sites, going to computers that kids are on. That's one part of it. Diane from KW Counseling certainly talking about communicating is another part of it. And I don't know if it was in any of her answers. I think maybe it was in some more offline discussion. But there's also just a stress of monitoring. And the monitoring in my case can't be, putting headphones on and maybe absently looking away, especially for a 4-year-old, right? And thinking, hey, something safe like Minecraft and YouTube. You don't have to be intentionally trying to find the bad parts of the internet. They will find you quite easily.
Yeah, unfortunately. But did you feel any need to try to talk with him about any of the content he just heard at that time?
Yeah, the content, it didn't really spark any curiosity in him, right? And it wasn't, we can't explain that those are racist terms easily enough to a 4-year-old. I mean, he doesn't understand racism. He doesn't even understand races, right? Yeah. And so it was one of those, I didn't feel that it was an opportunity to talk about something. We certainly do talk with Lyndon, more maybe my wife than I do, but we both, if he can ask anything, really, he can ask about anything. And we have a 8-month-old daughter, and so she's still breastfeeding and stuff like that. And I have a son that's 4 years old, and so sometimes my son asks questions about, breastfeeding or anything along those lines. That's totally fine. I mean, he's curious, and there's nothing, it's natural feeding, right? And so we certainly encourage that dialogue, and we encourage curiosity. We just think that that's a really great way to learn. But in this particular case, we just said it just wasn't appropriate. He didn't really understand, and I didn't feel like we could have explained it in a way that he could understand. So we just kind of distracted him with something else.
Yeah, I think the more I think about it, the way that I handled the situation with my daughter, I think it kind of goes back to when she was little. And maybe a lot of parents have this problem, but whenever she would get hurt, and the same with my son, whenever he would get hurt, skin their knee, bump their toe, bonk something, my immediate reaction was to distract them or misdirect them, make them laugh, do something I could to just take their mind off it. So forget the pain. Let's not talk about the pain. Let's just move on to the next happy thing. And I think that in a funny way, that's kind of stuck with me. And that's probably why I just, hey, you guys want to go to Dairy Queen? When I should have probably said, let's talk about that. So I think some of the training courses and that I imagine cover helping an optimist dad figure out how to properly address these things.
She's certainly stressing communication, and it sounds like in her parenting classes at KW Counseling that was an important factor. But, it's easy to say just talk to your kids and have that open dialogue. I can see how some parents would need coaching with that, and that's certainly a service that they offer.
Okay, so we just want to say thank you to Diane McGregor from KW Counseling. We definitely appreciate her taking the time to talk with us today. If you're interested in learning more about the programs or courses or any number of the things that they do over there, we'll be posting the link to their website. Tristan, do you have the website off the top of your head?
Yes, I think it's kwcounseling.com, but we'll tweet that out when we air the show and the podcast. So that'd be at Rob T. Case and at Tristan Bolton. We'll get their URL out there.
That's on Twitter, yep.
Okay, great. Well, you've been listening to the Rob and Tristan Show, and stay tuned for some of our next episodes. When we were talking to Diane about communicating and parents and making sure that channel is open, I mentioned earlier we're having some future podcasts. They're going to be going into a little bit deeper about teens sharing intimate photos and sexting and sextortion and things like that. And we're going to be bringing some experts in to help us navigate those waters. Just knowing that we're going to start doing a show on those topics, there was a trend still amongst those experts that still said about communicating, right? And so if we take anything away from Diane's conversation, just keep that dialogue open, or remember those opportunities, Rob, that you're talking about. And try to seize them more often, right? So I think it's great advice from Diane there. You've been listening to the Rob and Tristan Show. Stay tuned for some of our future shows. You can follow Rob at Rob T. Case on Twitter, and you can follow myself at Tristan Bolton. Have yourselves a good day.